What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome back to the Nerdy Narrative. Today I have a little bit of a different style of video for you. Recently, I have started my reread of the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. And I thought to myself, there's really not a whole lot I can say about this series that hasn't already been said by 100 other different booktubers that have read the books in recent years. I myself started reading the series in the mid-90s. It's what I always laughingly call my gateway to fantasy series. Previously, I was a big mystery and romance reader until I dated a guy in high school that handed me his mass market paperback copy of The Eye of the World, which I still have to this day. I don't read that copy anymore because the pages started falling out a couple of years ago on my last reread. So I did pick up the pretty 30th anniversary edition when it came out last year or year before. And this was the one I read during my most recent reread, which is part of a read along that's hosted by my best friend Kate over at the Literary Apothecary. So you might be wondering, well, if you don't think you have anything different to say, what do you have to say? What I thought I would do would be to share my favorite moments that I had during this particular reread of The Eye of the World. My first favorite moment of rereading The Eye of the World, and it is quite simply the beginning. If you have ever read this series, if you're a fan of The Eye of the World, then you're probably already feeling that feeling of nostalgia. Every time you start a Wheel of Time story, chapter 1, Robert Jordan begins the same way. It's iconic. It sets the series apart. The wheel of time turns and ages come to pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it is a beginning. And I have chills just reading it. I can't tell you how many times I've read that one paragraph, but when I read that paragraph going in for this reread, I had the chills, I had a flutter of excitement. There's just something to that paragraph. Iconic. My second most favorite moment rereading The Eye of the World came not long after. When Moraine has come to Emmonsfield, the Trollocs have attacked. She's gathering the group of young people. They're about to leave, but before they can slip off, the villagers come outside the inn and they start trying to cause a ruckus about Moraine's Sedai. And Moraine puts every single one of them in their place by telling them the history of Emmonsfield, that they come from the old blood, the blood of Manetheren. And I cannot say Manetheren without breaking out in chill bumps. Robert Jordan has a lot of things that he does that gets on my nerves, the extremely long descriptions. He repeats so many things over and over and over. But my goodness, this man can write a story. And the story that Moraine tells them of Manetheren, not only are the villagers put under a spell hearing about their history, it puts the reader under a spell. Just reading it, I was very still. I don't even think I breathed reading the story. It is so good. Let's talk about a favorite moment regarding characters. The first character I came across where I was going, yes, Bella. The horse. I'm gonna say it loud and with my whole chest. Bella is the real MVP of the Wheel of Time series. And following in that same vein and keeping going with favorite character moments, when our little band of characters reach Bearline and Rand, Matt, and Perrin have been out and about in the streets, they come back to the inn only to discover that Nynaeve has tracked them to the inn and she is there. The three boys look at each other and they're like, you know what? Maybe we better scram. And the Gleeman, Tom Maryland, was like, you know what? If there's anything I learned about her when I was in Emmonsfield is you better just go ahead in there and take your medicine. And just reading that line where the three boys exchange glances and take deep breaths and marched inside their room as if they were about to face Trollocs, I was hollering. I love Nynaeve. She has always been my number one favorite character. Every time I read this book, she's always my favorite character. In fact, if we're going to talk about favorite characters, my favorite characters from the first book were Nynaeve, Lan, Moraine, and Tom Maryland. Those are my 4 favorite characters. I never liked any of the rest of them, ever, in the first book. With Nynaeve being my favorite character, several of my favorite moments that I loved during this reread of The Eye of the World involved Nynaeve. Specifically, her and Lan. They sort of get into this competition, tracking and sneaking up on each other, and Nynaeve hiding her horse out in the woods and thinking, oh, well, good luck finding my horse, sir. And then he does come back with the horse. It's the little moments like that I just really thought were so funny. Oh gosh, there's one other character I failed to mention that's a favorite. But if I tell you they're a favorite in book 1, I think that would be a spoiler for coming books in the series. So I'm going to leave that character's name out of it. Just in case those of you watching may have only read The Eye of the World so far, I'm going to leave that person's name out. Because that would definitely give away clues for the future books, because this person you may not realize is going to be in future books. They're definitely a favorite character because of things that happen later. So I'll have to keep that one to myself. And a new favorite that is specific to this particular reread alone is this is the first time I've ever immersion read with this series. I've only ever read this series in print. I did get the audiobook from my library. It's narrated by Michael Kramer and Kate Redding, and Michael Kramer's voice for the Gleeman, Tom Maryland, was on point. Just absolute perfection. I used to not like Michael Kramer as a narrator, but I listened to him a lot for the Mistborn series, Mistborn Era 1, and I just grew accustomed and familiar with his voice, which was a good thing considering that he does the majority of the Wheel of Time, but his voice for Tom Maryland was just amazing. And so those were all of my top favorite moments from my reread of The Eye of the World. I hope you enjoyed hearing about it, especially if you're a longtime fan of the series. Thank you all so much for being here today. Your support means everything. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next video.